But
Now,
you're
I'm
in New
talking to you
Zealand.
from a record store here in Auckland, which is significant in that the way I found out about your record yesterday is I moved here from Rochester, New York, and
Mhm.
they have had they had a mass shooting there a couple days ago, and they've had some violence and whatever. So I was getting a hold of a buddy of mine who runs a record shop called the Bop Shop in Rochester to see how things were going, how he was, and he's doing fine. In fact, business is booming. But the last thing he mentioned to me was, "Oh, you got to check out this Emma Swift record." So that's
Oh wow,
that's
that's
exactly what I
really
did.
cool.
So
I that's amazing.
yeah,
I am friends with a couple of people who've got record stores, and they seem to be doing okay.
yeah,
I think
yep,
because
yep,
people are at home, and so long as they're able to do curbside pickup or delivery, they're people are kind of really getting behind buying vinyl and stuff
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
CDs, and it's
yep.
great.
You got to have something to buy.
Yeah, what are you doing in New Zealand?
I've lived here since 1994. So the
Oh,
whole family
wow.
packed up and moved out. We're out of here. Smart move, actually.
Oh, well, New Zealand just seems like an earthly paradise compared to everywhere else on the
Something
planet
like
right
that.
now.
It does get that. Have you ever been?
No, I've never been.
Uh,
I can't wait to go. It's so funny because I'm Australian, and being
right.
Australian, I always just sort of put it on my, oh, I'll get there,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then I moved to America and I just haven't been. But I'm hoping definitely when I go back south side next, whenever the border reopens,
Yep, yep.
I'll do New Zealand as well.
Oh, you must. So
Oh, I think we're all just so much more aware now that things can totally close down. So
that's
you,
for sure. Who knew?
so like there are whole parts of Australia as well. Like I haven't been to the Red Centre and I've never been to Western Australia. And when I go back, I'll definitely do both of those things because I
Cool,
don't
cool.
know.
Yeah. So we need to talk about your album, Blonde on the Tracks, a genius
Yeah.
title if there ever was one. And I guess the first question that I have to ask is, why did you think we need another album of Bob Dylan covers?
I guess I didn't think we needed, as a culture or a collective, it was more very much a solipsistic, this is what I wanted to do
Cool.
kind of exercise. At the time I made the record, I was pretty depressed. And so when I'm feeling low as a human, it's really hard for me to write my own material.
Right?
So I had really severe writer's block. And Bob Dylan released his triplicate record where
Oh yeah.
he did the Great American Songbook, and I just thought, I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it with Dylan songs. And it was just very inspiring, really. I mean, the wealth of material to plunder in Dylan's catalog, it's just never ending, really.
Yeah, that's it. And it's still growing. And you're probably the first person to cover one of his new songs. I contain multitudes, so that's pretty cool.
Oh, absolutely. There's not many firsts you can have with the Dylan back catalog, but to get in there first on a cover version, I'm like, great, that's amazing. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm a super fan, obviously, and Rough and Rowdy Ways just feels like such an enormous gift of an
Yes.
album in this
I,
pandemic year.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The strength of the material is magnificent, from Murder Most Foul, which he put out as the first single,
It
through
blew
to Key
everyone's mind.
West. I know, like, just hello, friends. I'm Bob Dylan. Here's my new 17-minute single. Hope you like it. I just, I love that.
Yeah.
And what a treat because I'm sure you're in a similar scenario. Like, because we've been in lockdown in Nashville for such a long time, I just spend so much of my time online.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't want to be spending so much of my time online just consuming the very grim news of the universe.
Yeah. But the
It's
great thing is
really
I've been spending most of my time online talking to people like you, so it's been fantastic.
That's it. Same. I've spent an extraordinary amount of time this year talking to other Bob Dylan fans. And that has been just a delight.
Yeah, well, you can count me among them. Uh, I first saw Bob at the Rolling Thunder Review back in 1975, and it was just blowing my mind.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
And did you enjoy the documentary then last year?
I can't say I enjoyed it. I definitely watched it. I love the live footage. I'm not the biggest Martin Scorsese fan as far as music goes. I think he's kind of overrated. And I was kind of annoyed. And I had interviewed Rob Stoner, who was the musical director for the Rolling Thunder Review, and they had shot all this other stuff that was very, because they kind of go off on a tangent in the doco, and some of it's not particularly true.
Right,
so,
yeah.
so it really annoyed some of those folks who had been interviewed for the film, but not really used in the way that they thought they were going to be used. So, but I think there's going to be another film coming.
Oh, great. Well, I hope so. I mean, I really liked it, but I wasn't there.
Right.
So so I have when they get loose with the truth,
Yeah.
I'm a little bit more forgiving than some fans.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But those performances are just, you can't do any. You can't. They're amazing.
They're wonderful, and Joni Mitchell playing Coyote in that hotel room is just fabulous. Really
Yes.
good.
So now, speaking of, I contain mere multitudes, being somebody, a Bob Dylan song that hasn't been covered before. How did you approach it? How did you think of it? Was there pressure on? Did you put it on yourself to go, oh my God, what am I doing recording this song?
When I approached every song for this record, I kind of had to just erase all knowledge of any Bob Dylan cover that ever existed
Right.
beforehand, because otherwise it's too overwhelming.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, if I thought too much about artists like Adetta and Nina Simone and Sandy Denny and Jimi Hendrix and all of those people,
Yeah.
I just would have run screaming from the project.
Fair enough.
So, but Multitudes, I guess there was a kind of freedom in it because no one else had sung it before,
Right.
other than Dylan.
Yeah.
And there were certain limitations on what I was doing because I was in lockdown in my house. So it was recorded in my lounge room into a microphone that it's like a really basic Shure 57 gig mic, really cheap
Yep.
material, but totally workable.
They do
And
the
then
job.
they totally do the job. And then I emailed it to my producer, Patrick, and I said, look, I don't want to put this record out unless we put I Contain Multitudes on the record.
Yeah.
And luckily for me, he's a really flexible and cool guy. So he was like, yeah, sure, let's do it. And we did.
Right. And Patrick is Patrick Sansoni from Wilco, right?
Yeah, he's a wonderful man, really super talented multi-instrumentalist and producer. And so on the record, it's him playing the 12-string Rickenbacker guitar on Queen Jane Approximately.
Oh yes.
But then he plays some really beautiful keyboard on Going, Going, Gone, and You're a Big Girl Now. And he's just a really talented human being. I'm so lucky to know him.
And getting back to I Contain Multitudes, the lyrics are very, Dylan himself is referencing everything from old songs from the 50s to like all the young dudes and stuff. And when you're singing those lyrics, how are you relating to them?
I think, like Bob Dylan, I'm very much a fan of poetry and visual art and history and the history of music. So, one of the things that appealed to me about I Contain Multitudes is the intertextuality of it and the way that he's referencing, all the young dudes, which can be David Bowie or Mott the Hoople. Choose your player.
I,
But
I lean
also
on the side of Mott myself, my favorite band.
right. But then there's also Edgar Allan Poe, and there's
Right.
Anne Frank, and Indiana Jones. So there's a bit of Harrison Ford in there.
I know it's
It's a
crazy.
marvelously postmodern song, and you don't have to get all the references or even relate to all the references, but it's there's definitely I think something in it for everyone. I really love the anybody who's been listening to Bob Dylan for decades knows that he's a fan of writing, and he's often referencing other literary texts.
Yes, he is.
But then saying something in the song like, I drive fast cars and I eat fast food. Like,
Poetry.
I never really imagined him as a consumer of fries. But I dig it.
Fantastic. Now I must say, when I saw the list of the songs and realized that "Sad-Eyed Lady of the Lowlands" was on there, I was like, "Oh my God, how do you bring yourself to sing that song?" Because it's such a personal song for him, and everybody I think knows what the circumstances were around that song. So, how did you find a place to put yourself in that?
To me, it was the only song on the album that I definitely wanted to do. I was very determined to do Sad Eyed Lady at the Lowlands. And the way that I've been describing that is it's a little bit like the Everest of Dylan's song.
You sang
So
it because it's there.
I sang it because it's there. And because I think if you're going to do a Bob Dylan record, then why not just commit to the masterpiece? I
Right.
just think that it's his Guernica, it's his Mona Lisa.
Yeah.
I wanted to try it on for size. I love the romanticism of that song.
Yeah.
Um, it was also recorded in Nashville.
That's true.
So he made Blonde on Blonde in Nashville. So I like that too.
Very cool. Very cool. So the sessions themselves, um, where over what period of time did you record these songs, and where and how?
So most of the songs were recorded over a 2-day period in a really small vibey studio called Magnetic Sound in East Nashville. And that was, yeah, just really short. 6 of the songs were. And then I kind of forgot about the project. I started writing my own material. I worked my way out of depression. I dealt with some personal stuff. And I just sort of let it live in a file on my computer, going, oh, that's nice. There's that Bob Dylan project that I was working on. And then when the pandemic struck at the beginning of this year, and I lost my job as a touring musician, and I had some studio time booked for my own record of songs that got cancelled, I
Right.
suddenly thought, oh, I'm going to go back to this Dylan project.
Hmm.
So I added in I Contain Multitudes, and I added in Simple Twist of Fate.
Ah,
Um, and I mean, Simple Twist of Fate, I think, is probably the most obvious of the Dylan songs on the record. And it's really funny. Some people really dig it, and other people are like, it's been done too many times.
yeah.
But I just think it's a beautiful song, so
Yeah.
I was happy to hash it out again.
Yeah, no, you're certainly allowed to sing one that people are familiar with from time to time. Because let's face it, I mean, New Morning and Planet Waves are not Bob's most well-known albums, and those songs, The Man in Me and Going, Going, Gone, people aren't going to be singing along right off the bat. So why did you choose those two songs?
I really wanted to celebrate his songwriting on those records. I think that they're really overlooked, particularly Planet Waves, I'm very into.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and doing Going, Going, Gone as a kind of torch song very much appealed to me.
Yeah.
And The Man in Me was, I mean, totally, because as a woman singing Bob Dylan songs in 2020 and not changing any of the pronouns, I just
Yeah.
wanted to
Yeah.
have fun with the gender. Like, I was already doing, Queen Jane approximately, and You're a Big Girl Now, and
Right.
singing it from the same perspective as Dylan. So why not just start singing like The Man in Me will do nearly any task? Like, it's it 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 gave the record. It's a very sincere record in a way, and a very emotional record. And I think The Man in Me gives it a little bit more of a sense of humor.
Right. Very cool. Now, I would be remiss if I didn't mention that Robin Hitchcock is on the record as well, because there are Robin Hitchcock fans all over the place. I remember he was down here playing at a little club in Auckland a few years back, and I think he had Peter Buck in his band at the time. So,
Yeah, with the Venus 3.
yeah. So what does he add to the mix for you?
He's an extraordinarily talented poet and songwriter, very much in the Bob Dylan tradition. Uh, and most people think of him as a songwriter, but he's an extraordinary guitar player.
Uh-huh.
And and not many people get to have Robin play guitar on their records. I'm extremely lucky. Um, so what he really brings to the album is that appreciation, not just for the songs of Bob Dylan, but a real innate understanding of British folk music.
Right,
Guitarists like Bert Jansch and Martin Carthy,
right.
and that's really special and very, there's a lot of good guitar players in Nashville, but they don't play guitar like Robin Hitchcock. It's a
Gotcha.
completely different style.
And it's interesting that that English folk stuff, that's the roots of a lot of Bob, especially his early songs, because he was picking and choosing from all sorts of things that he was listening to at the time and borrowing freely melodies and lyrics and titles and things. So,
Yeah, and I'm very much into, just as I'm into traditional country music and indie rock, I'm really into British folk music. You know, Sandy Denny's one of my favorite singers, and Marianne Faithfull is another
uh,
hero of mine. I just love her.
I still, Marianne Faithfull, she's making better albums now than she's ever done in her life, I think. It's amazing.
Oh, the latest one she did with Nick Cave is just fabulous. It's
Yeah.
really, really beautiful work.
Yeah, I bought that. I think at the same time as the final Leonard Cohen album came out, and played them back to back. And I was like laid out for the rest of the day. I was like, I can't take any more.
Well, I was playing Leonard Cohen in the house yesterday, and I mean, uh, you know, Leonard Cohen and Marianne Faithfull and Bob Dylan, to me, not one of the greatest things that they've given their fans as well as fellow musicians is these long careers where they continue to make brilliant work
Yep,
right up, you know, Leonard Cohen right up until his 80s. It's
yep,
just,
yep, yep.
I think that adds so much meaning to a life. You
Oh,
know, the
definitely.
idea that we don't get to 60 and retire, you know, like there's
No.
still so
Well,
much
he
to
did have some
life.
motivation. His manager ripped him off while he was up on Mount Baldy or whatever. But still, to see him skipping out on the stage when he's 80 years old was just, you couldn't beat that.
No, he's a real legend.
Yes, indeed. So now that you've got this album out, and how's your writer's block? Is it has it been jolted a little bit, or you still?
Yeah, I'm writing much more now. So that really lifted. And I think getting inside Bob Dylan's songs really helped that too. I learned so much about the craft of songwriting by examining his material. I don't write songs anything like Bob Dylan.
Nobody does.
Obviously, nobody does. He's the poet laureate for a reason, but he certainly helped me get a better understanding of the craft. You know, I never went to music school. I studied English lit at Sydney University. Um,
Right.
so, so in a way, doing the Dylan records was a little bit like taking myself to songwriting school.
Got to learn from the best. That's for sure.
Indeed. I mean, it could have made me, the flip is that it could have made me just freak out and never want to write
Right.
a
You
song
could have been
again.
intimidated beyond measure.
But in a way, I was able to see, yeah, how the different ways you can approach a song and put something together.
Yeah. And with his catalog, I mean, the songwriting is not consistent. You know, there's a big difference between Blowing in the Wind and I Contain Multitudes and everything that happened in between. So, you know, he's just, it seems to me, he just acts as an example of what you is possible, humanly possible, if you put your mind to it and you have the talent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's really cool too. He doesn't seem to set too rigid a standard across his work. Particularly, I think since he started doing the Sinatra stuff,
Right.
um, the melodies that he's writing, I can really hear the way
Right.
that he's been listening to those old records
Yep.
and how that comes in his songs. Like on this Rough and Rowdy album, there's this song called "I've Made Up My Mind to Give Myself to You,"
Right.
and it's very romantic and
Yes.
beautiful. And it could be a Gershwin song. As you say, it's very, very different to say, I don't know, something like Blowing in the Wind or
Here,
Times
Mr.
They Are
Tambourine
Changing.
Man.
Mr. Tambourine Man.
Fantastic. Yeah, I mean, you just never know what Bob's going to come up to it next. I mean, it's because I remember when his previous album Tempest came out, and
Mm.
you know he has like that 14-minute long song about the Titanic and with no chorus. It's just him going on, and I think that was a preparation for us to hear the next album 8 years later. You know, it's just like be ready. So who knows? So now we're going to be ready for your next record. When do you think you're going to have something together of your own material?
I'm going to release a single next month of my
Oh, great.
own song, just because it's a song that I wrote in response to the tornado that happened in my neighborhood in East Nashville,
Right.
and in response to living in America in the era of Trump. So it's a very timely song. I can't hold on to it for too long. The bird's got to fly. And then my solo record, the full length one, will come out in January 2022.
Excellent. I've got a great idea for the flip side of your single about the tornado.
Oh, really?
Idiot Wind.
Indeed. It's
It covers a
perfect.
tornado and Trump.
Yes, exactly.
Anyways, thank you so much for talking to me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks. It's just lovely to connect with you and to geek out about Bob Dylan.
Yeah, and next time you're down in this part of the world, come around to Auckland and play us a few songs for it.
I definitely will. I'm in talks to do a tour of Australia and New Zealand in May next year.
Excellent.
If,
Now, hopefully, we'll have everything wide open by then.
well, if it's wide open anywhere, it's going to be Australia and New Zealand.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. Fingers crossed. All right. Well, have a nice Sunday afternoon. Thank you very much.
I will. Great to meet you online, and I'm so glad you found out about the record.